my friends, and welcome back to my channel. It's 2:22 as I'm hitting record, so I wanted to mention that in case that is symbolic to anyone. But yeah, this reading today, I felt called to come on and do a reading about shadows. So with soul contracts, which is usually what I channel, soul contracts do trigger lessons that we need to heal or lessons that we need to learn and shadows that we need to heal. And a lot of people protect their shadows and they're not consciously aware they're doing it. I want to say first and foremost, I'm not here to make excuses for bad behavior, but usually what happens when we trigger someone's shadow or they trigger ours is the ego tries to protect the shadow. So the ego reacts, the ego denies or deflects or argues, I'm hearing. So this reading is going to be about, I'm setting the intention that it finds the people it needs to find. And this is going to be about you and the situation or the person you're energetically connected to and what shadows are being triggered, what lessons are being triggered within this connection. And I've been guided not to separate you and your person. I did a reading like this a few months ago. So what I did was I laid out the cards and I didn't assign them to you or your person. I just spoke about them. And so that's what I'm going to do today. So if it's not resonating with you, like the card and the shadows that I'm talking about, it's possible that it's your person's shadows that I'm talking about. You may resonate in small ways with all of the cards, especially if you are in some sort of mirroring situation, because you and your person could have similar or contrasting shadows is what I'm hearing. So let's get into it. I have a few different decks we're going to use today. I'm starting with this one, which is the Oracle of Pluto. So this is the one we're going to start with, and I'm going to pull 3 cards from this deck. This could be a triggering reading for some people. After I pull cards from this deck, I think I'll just put the cards out so I don't forget. I'm going to get animal cards, and then I have a doozy of a deck for you. For those of you who have been around a while, you know this deck because I used to use it all the time, and it's called Sacred Woundings, and I have a book that goes with this deck, and it explains where these wounds come from and how someone with this wound behaves. And it also talks about how to heal these wounds or these sacred shadows. So, like I said, this could be a triggering reading for some people because we are talking about shadows. And like I said, our ego tries to protect our shadows. But our shadows are where our light lives. That's how we find our light, is by healing our shadows. And sometimes just being self-aware about our shadows gives us the crow's outside, gives us a huge head start on healing the shadows, just simply by being self-aware about them. Some shadows require more work and reflection. But sometimes once we're aware, it's kind of like a habit. Once we're aware of it and we see that shadow coming out, we can work to not be triggered or repeat that pattern. Anyway, so let's get into it. I hope you guys are doing well. I am a little shaky because I was lifting weights before I did this, so I'm a little shaky. But let's get into it. So Spirit, we are looking at the shadows within this connection that are being triggered right now. We are looking at the shadows. Hello, Mr. Crow. So let's have a look. Deep breath. You're safe here. Even if you feel triggered, like if it makes you feel any better, I'll say when I'm feeling attacked by a card. But yeah, you're safe here. It's not about judgment. It's about self-awareness. And it may help you understand the complexity of your connection or soul contract or your person. So I'm actually not going to take the bottom. I'm going to shuffle out 3 cards, and then I'm going to take the bottom. Should I take the bottom? I'll just look at it. I'll just look at it. I made eye contact with it. It's a hen. And this, I kind of wish this was in alphabetical order, but it's not. So you'll just have to be patient with me when I try and find these cards. Hen. 33, my favorite number. Submission. Interesting. Oh, buddy. Okay, I did need to take this card because this is about boundaries. And this is reminding me that reading I did yesterday where we had the Mary Magdalene card. And it talked about how she would do anything for, was it Mary Magdalene? Yeah, that she would do everything for whoever the person she was with. I can't remember his name. Losing herself in the process. So this is about submission. And, you know, maybe this is about putting up with bad behavior or not having strong boundaries, which is something that happens in the counterpart journey. Is the divine feminine needs to learn how to set healthy boundaries. And that's another thing. Egos react to boundaries. I'm not saying your ego, but if in this connection you tried to set healthy boundaries and this person disrespected them or pushed you away or, you know, had a problem with you setting boundaries, that's coming from their ego, because it's taking away some sort of control, and the ego likes control. And also for those of you who have had a hard time setting boundaries in your life, it can, and especially if you're a people pleaser, it can feel mean to set boundaries. And sometimes when we set boundaries, we do lose those people. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have boundaries. So this card is about submission, and learning not to submit, not to be a people pleaser, and setting healthy boundaries. So some of you could resonate with that. Yeah, it's talking about if you've become too submissive, too meek towards someone else in a connection. If a certain person or relationship immediately comes to mind, you're right on the money. How are you playing small? How are you showing up as a lesser version of yourself? So a good example would be you could be someone who is very healed and elevated, and maybe you were connected to someone who wasn't, and you could have been showing up in a smaller version of yourself, trying to keep the peace. Yes, Mr. Crow, walking on eggshells, people pleasing, not wanting to put up boundaries for fear of pushing someone away. And this card is about reclaiming your confidence and power and asserting yourself. So this could be something that was triggered within you, is that this person could have treated you in ways where you felt like you had to people please and you felt like you had to submit. And one of the lessons you were meant to learn was to put up boundaries and to reclaim your confidence. It does talk about power play in relationships. So think about that. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's on the bottom, but I made eye contact with the hen, and I thought it was very symbolic that when I opened it up, it talks about boundaries. It also talks about if the rooster comes out, that's a really good indication that there was some sort of imbalance of power. Anyway, let's get into it. So, Spirit, what shadows or lessons are being triggered within this connection? What shadows or lessons are being triggered within this connection? This would also be a good time if you want to ask Spirit for a sign in this reading, an animal, an image, an object, a symbol. Now would be the time to do so that if it comes out, that's extra confirmation for you. So what shadows or lessons were being triggered within this connection? What lessons or shadows were being triggered within this connection? So we do have the hermit crab, which was actually on the bottom of the deck when I first started shuffling. The hermit crab was there. So we have the giraffe, and actually these are coming out in reverse. We have the devil. Oh gosh, how did I know that card was going to come out? Okay, so I'm actually going to keep the ones that came out in reverse. So we have the rabbit, the devil, and the giraffe. And for some reason, I had a feeling that devil was going to come out. Capricorn energy could be symbolic. The rabbit talks about, in the animal deck, the rabbit does talk about overthinking. And the giraffe talks about seeing the bigger picture, seeing things from a higher perspective. So this connection could have triggered your need to see things from a higher perspective, or your person's need to see things from a higher perspective. With the devil card, it definitely feels like this connection could have triggered addictions, codependency, unhealthy attachment styles. So anxious attachment, anxious avoidant, dismissive avoidant. Did I say codependency? It could have activated that runner-chaser dynamic. So this is already, I knew that devil card was going to come out. I just knew it. All right, so the giraffe. 34. Interesting. Well, there's the devil right there. So I guess I just randomly opened up to the devil. So I think we're going to start there. So we have addiction. We have the A word, which I'm going to spell because sometimes YouTube's really flagging a lot of tarot readers right now. So I'm going to spell the A word, A-B-U-S-E. And just a reminder, if it's physical, I don't think you should be watching tarot readings. Aggression, control. So remember the hen talked about some sort of power dynamic. So it could have triggered control within your person, or even within you wanting to control the outcome. All right. Just like a few others in the deck, the devil is a special card representing more of a mythical creature or concept. Should the devil card appear in a reading, there is something sinister at play that requires total, ruthless honesty on your end. So shadows in general, which to me come from that devil energy, come and are connected to the ego. It seems to have triggered within this connection, within both of you, the need to be totally honest about some of your shadows. And, you know, maybe addictions, maybe codependency. And for some of you, I'm even hearing like total ruthless honesty about your person and how they were showing up. Because with that hen card, it kind of talks about being submissive. And if someone is mistreating you, at some point you have to be brutally honest with yourself and put up boundaries and protect yourself. This card is a call to get real about the patterns, behaviors, or cycles you are perpetuating that are unhealthy. So this connection triggered unhealthy patterns and cycles. This, in a way, is the very essence of shadow work. As a byproduct of life, each of us inevitably has at least a few ways in which we tend to self-sabotage. And I talk about this all the time, about how something as simple as, and you know what the example I'm going to use, I'm going to use cookies. Something as simple as eating too many cookies, like eating cookies every day, You know it's not making you feel good. Maybe you're like emotionally eating. That's something that I struggled with for a while. You know you shouldn't be eating all those cookies, but you just, it almost becomes an addiction. And once you're aware of it, and that little whisper inside is like, maybe you're eating too many cookies. Maybe the reason you feel sick is all the cookies. And you continue to eat the cookies, that's a form of self-sabotage. Looking at what I'm seeing here, knowing that you're people-pleasing, for example, or someone is showing up in an unhealthy way, or you're trapped in an unhealthy pattern, once you know you're trapped in that unhealthy pattern, but you continue to engage in that pattern, that's a form of self-sabotage. Putting up with less than you deserve, a form of self-sabotage. Toxic patterns, a form of self-sabotage. Pushing people away. And I'm not, those last two, I'm not saying that about you. I'm more so getting that from your person. This is the moment to name them. Is it addiction? Is it abuse? Codependency? Something else? How are you engaging in and perpetuating this pattern now? So if you're stuck in a pattern with someone else and you're aware of the pattern and the pattern keeps repeating, by engaging in that pattern, you're actually self-sabotaging because you know that pattern is there. You know it's unhealthy. I hope that makes sense. I love you, Mr. Crow. I love you so much. This card isn't a poke at guilt or shame, nor to trigger any trauma. It is, however, a calling out. It's highly probable that you're already aware of these behaviors and you know they don't serve you. Even if there is comfort in familiarity, continuing to sabotage yourself only holds you back from your truest potential. So by, engaging in a pattern where there's this devil energy, you're actually staying in low vibrational energy. And it says something very important here. If there is comfort in familiarity, so if this person's shadows or the way they treated you seemed a little familiar, maybe linked to your family or your upbringing, familial comes from the word family. So these could have been patterns that you were engaging in as a child. And I always say as a child, you can't stop the pattern. You can't set healthy boundaries as a child because, I've taught my children about boundaries, and I've told them if there's something that makes you uncomfortable that I'm doing, or, a good example is as simple as one of my kids who's neurodivergent doesn't like physical touch. So I help them set a boundary that we don't, automatically hug them without asking if it's okay. We don't cross that boundary. Anyway, but when you're a child in a tumultuous situation, you can't set a boundary like that because you probably got punished, if that makes sense. Anyway, where was I? It may feel scary to let go, but it's time to change the narrative. What is the first step? Name it, write it down, take it. So that is one, I think that's being triggered within both you and this person, whoever this person is. Especially since I put it in the middle. So I feel like that's very symbolic that is, I didn't set the intention that, you're any of these cards. But the fact that it's in the middle is giving me connecting energy. All right, the rabbit. Oh my gosh, on the next page is the crow. I'm not going to read it though because it didn't come out, but shout out to you, Mr. Crow. All right, so we have the giraffe. Balance. Oh gosh. There's definitely a theme here. one of the things that got triggered within this connection was energetic balance, energetic imbalance. So, there could have definitely been some kind of like codependency here, or people pleasing, or runner chaser energy. Energetic imbalance. When there's an energetic imbalance, the energy doesn't flow. It becomes twisted. And one of the examples I use, I don't think I have it here. No, I don't. I put it away. But like, imagine, I can show you with my necklace, I guess. Come here, Mr. Necklace. I don't know why my necklace is a mister. So imagine this, like my thumbs are you and your person, and the chain is energy. So when it's reciprocated, the energy flows back and forth and creates like an energetic loop so that that energy can flow. When it's imbalanced, what happens to the and this is an actual thing, energetic cords that connect us to people. When there's an imbalance, those cords become like twisted like this, and knots start to happen, and it prevents the energy from being able to flow. And that's when, we start to have conflict and arguments and things like that. So that was definitely something that was triggered here, especially because it's in reverse. The head and the heart. The head and the heart. So clearly this connection triggered the battle between intuition and ego, the head and the heart. A really good example I can use is just talking about that hen card and the devil, is the battle between the head and the heart. So cognitive dissonance, and that's kind of when your head and your heart are confused and they're at war with each other. Your heart is telling you, your intuition is telling you, I love this person. I feel like I have a connection with them. Maybe like you're even an empath who has a lot of compassion for hurt people. But your logical mind, your head, could be telling you some of these behaviors aren't okay. Some of this energetic imbalance isn't okay. I feel like I deserve more. It could even be the other way around, where your heart is and your intuition is telling you that something isn't right, but your mind tries to make logic of it. It could have also triggered your like questioning the soul contract. Anyway, as the tallest mammal in the world, a giraffe lives with its feet planted solidly on the ground and its head up in the clouds, which gives this creature an interesting, balanced experience between the tangible and the intangible. When the giraffe shows up, we are being called to find this place of balance and operate from it. Again, the fact that it's in the reverse, I feel like there was an energetic imbalance within this connection. I'm seeing the Temperance card in reverse, so Sagittarius energy could be symbolic. But it's also a healthy balance between your heart and your head. Because I'm someone who believes we should follow our heart. But that doesn't mean hurting ourselves in the process. There needs to be a balance of the head and the heart. And maybe your person was more in their head, right? Maybe they weren't thinking from they weren't acting from their heart space. They could have been acting from their ego. Where was I? How many times have you heard people talk about their head and their heart? They're at war with one another, for example. And to me, that's the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords, the Two of Pentacles, that's when your head and heart are at war. Somebody's vacuuming. Neat. For example, the heart says one thing and the brain says another. The giraffe card asks us to put equal weight in our practical, logical, objective side and our emotional, spiritual, intuitive side. There exists an intersection where both aspects of ourselves meet, where they agree and tell us the same thing. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, on which side of the spectrum do you fall right now? Are you approaching something too logically and could benefit from allowing your emotions to come forward? Or is it the opposite? Wherever you are, know that a space exists where we can find peace, balance, and resolution. It is here that your answer is hiding. So you could have also been connected, like maybe it was you that was thinking more with your logical brain than your heart. Maybe you questioned if you were delusional about this soul contract. One example I was hearing is the person you're connected to could have intuitively felt called to you, felt a connection with you, but their ego could have taken over, their mind could have taken over. And I started this reading talking about how the ego tries to protect the shadow, tries to protect that devil energy. The other example I was hearing is this could be someone who, like if there's some side of outside interference, if there's some kind of outside interference where someone is worrying about the opinions of others, or a difference in age, or someone is married and they're worried about how, for example, and please leave your judgment for yourself. For example, maybe someone's married but intuitively feels a soul connection, but their head is telling them, but I'm married, even though their heart is feeling this connection. Or like I said, age difference, cultural difference. All right. Also, this says the giraffe, when we cannot access our intuition, it is often because something in our everyday physical life needs attention. So one thing I will say is when you're in lower vibrational energy, or you are in the energy of like being in an unbalanced connection or even a toxic connection, it can be very hard to hear your intuition. It's almost like your mind drowns out your intuition. And anxiety screams, intuition whispers. All right, now we have the rabbit. Get a little snacky snack. I think this is going to be a long one. Or you can watch it on like high speed. 70. Fast-paced change, decision-making, the need to act. So one of the things that it could have triggered is that this connection, I don't know why I feel like that's your person, but this connection could have triggered some kind of shadow about making decisions. That is a wound, the wound of indecision. And it stems from shadows. It stems from childhood trauma. So that could have been triggered within your person or you. One of the wounds that could have been triggered here, or the shadows, is the need to act and make a decision. I'll just give an example. Let's say this was an unhealthy connection, an unhealthy emotional or unbalanced connection. You maybe had to make the decision to like pull your energy back or to walk away from it. And you could have been resisting that because we did have that hen, in hopes that this person would change, continuing in the cycle or the pattern, right? Or the person that you're connected to could have needed to make a big decision in order to be with you. Maybe they needed to move. Maybe they needed to end another relationship. Maybe they needed to work on their shadows, and they could have been very indecisive about working on their shadows, or indecisive about what they wanted for their life. The rabbit also talks about something very fast-paced. So when you and this person met, there could have been like an instant soul connection, which could have triggered shadows. And the fact that, decision-making and the need to act, I almost feel like this is kind of giving me the energy of someone who needs to make the decision to work on themselves and then take action towards you. Like maybe this is someone you haven't heard from in a while. It does talk about rabbits are notorious for being skittish. And it's on page 70, which is the Chariot. So I feel like there's something about forward movement, where some of these shadows need to be healed before there can be forward movement. So rabbits are notorious for being skittish. They are hyper-vigilant and ready to run at the slightest hint of danger. So you could have had someone who was an avoidant. I don't know if you were the one that saw danger and ran with that hen card. I feel like you could have seen the danger. Again, no judgment. You could have seen the danger and kind of, ignored it. Not ignored it, but you could have felt like, well, maybe if I just do this, maybe if I just say this, maybe if I just am more patient. I'm thinking of that hen card. So, one of the things, this could have also been for some of you, it could have been a very fleeting connection. Like maybe you had a false start with this person. So it talks about if you hesitate for too long, the moment will pass you by. But if you act too quickly, you may find yourself in over your head. So it's kind of like, I'm getting the energy that your person needs to take some sort of action towards you, but I'm seeing a card about how they're afraid they'll get in too deep, or I feel like whoever you're connected to has a fear of intimacy, unless that's you. I'm getting the energy of fear of intimacy. If you are someone who struggles with indecision and overanalyzing, the pressure of the moment may cause you to freeze. It may be helpful to step out of the logical and instead tune into your intuition. So it's like very similar energy here. It almost feels like someone was coming from a place of intuition and not looking at it logically for a while. And the other person was looking at it too logically and overanalyzing the situation, causing them to go quiet or to freeze. It also talks about acting out of fear. So this person could have reacted or made decisions based out of fear. And then we do have to talk about the hermit crab on the bottom. Hermit, Virgo energy could be symbolic. Oh my gosh, I just opened open to it. I'm not making sense with my words. I just opened right onto it. The hermit crab, necessary withdrawal. So I think a lot of us were raised to think that if you break up, it was for a reason, which I do believe. If you break up, it just wasn't meant to be. Relationships shouldn't be work. They shouldn't trigger you. Soul connections do. So one of the things that was triggered within this connection is the need for necessary withdrawal. And the hermit crab connected to Virgo, the hermit, is about soul introspection and reflection and healing. So that was something that was meant to be triggered within this connection, was for both of you to withdraw and do some soul searching. Necessary withdrawal. So the separation or the withdrawal was necessary. I just repeated myself. Inner growth. So it triggered shadows that led to inner growth. It's all making sense, Spirit. It's all making sense. So the hermit crab knows when it's time to retreat inside. When the energy of the hermit crab has arrived in a reading, a certain withdrawal is imperative. So if you are in separation right now, it's for a reason. This card is a call to explore our inner landscape and search for answers rather than to search for them outside of ourselves. So you and this person, this connection triggered you to both go within. When we are growing, we often reach a milestone in our journey that requires us to take a step back. If we rely too heavily on others, these influences can drown out our own inner voice. And I was saying that about the rabbit. To remain true to ourselves, a certain amount of alone time is required to let that voice have room to speak up. For those of us who commit to a spiritual journey in a serious way, the energy of this card probably feels familiar. Yes, it does. As much as we can learn from others, the spiritual path is ultimately one we walk alone. Carve out some time for yourself and see what wisdom rises to the surface. You might surprise yourself. We all, listen to this, further reflection. We all possess the potential for spiritual gifts. I believe that. Unlike in the movies, however, the messages we receive from spirit through these psychic senses are incredibly subtle, almost a whisper. And it's in hermit energy where you can hear your intuition, where you can hear that whisper. Anyway. All right. That's the first part. The fact that we have the vulture on the bottom is just so telling to me. What you thought was a blessing or a tragedy, what you thought was a tragedy was actually a blessing in disguise. Air energy, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. This is about purification, essential for rebalance. All right, so let's see what shadows were triggered within this connection. And I'm just going to get 2 cards. What shadows were triggered? Whoa, the panther. That's a strong card. I'm gonna talk about the panther. Annihilation of the unnecessary, the panther. So we have the hawk. Love the hawk. Messenger of divinity. So this connection was meant to change both of you. And it is, I'm feeling like this is a divine connection with the hawk coming out. The hawk. Oh my gosh. So one of the things that could have triggered within you, a shadow that it could have triggered within you, is your intuition. And for some of you, you could have like intuitively seen through this person. That's interesting to me. To bring into balance a perspective shift. So I feel like it triggered the need to change perspectives in some way. And it was meant to redirect the course of your lives. It was meant to, I'm hearing put an end to these cycles, these patterns, this devil energy, codependency, attachment, unhealthy attachment styles. I want to look at more air energy. I want to look at the panther. Annihilation of the unnecessary, purging. So it's like, listen, this is very much, this reminds me of the tower, or it reminds me of the shedding of your unhealed self. So the shadows that it triggered was self-destructive behavior or self-sabotage. The panther won't stand to see our growth or energy stagnate. And that's what happens when there's an imbalance of energy or you're stuck in a cycle. Instead, it pounces into our lives and causes all kinds of havoc with the ultimate intention of bringing us towards more fulfilling lives. It is unexpected, uncomfortable, and sometimes feels devastating. But after the dust clears, it's easy to see the panther's wisdom at work. We've all been through these experiences, and they've made us better people. Trust that the panther's journey always leads to a brighter place. All right, so we're gonna get 2 cards. What shadows were triggered? What shadows were triggered? 1, 2. Whoa! Oh my gosh. So before I started this reading, in this Pluto deck, it said something about the bottom card. So that's very powerful. This was meant to trigger you awakening, and so that you could shed that old version of yourself, which is what I was talking about, awaken you spiritually, awaken this person spiritually. Maybe your person wasn't awakened yet. So we're going to read the cosmic egg. There's no shadow for the cosmic egg, but this is one of the purposes of this connection: completion, harmony, the infinite within the finite. The cosmic egg is the final card of the journey of the animal deck, and it represents the unfolding of cosmic consciousness. This state emerges after we have tread the path for quite some time, and through self-effort and grace, we experience self-realization. And that hermit crab talked about, you have to walk that path alone. A sense of contentment and oneness spontaneously arises within us, and the veils of our self-limiting beliefs are lifted. So that's what it was triggering within both of you. And this makes me feel like coming into union with yourself. When the essence of the cosmic egg has not been activated, we may feel as if we will never get there, or that we travel alone, even if our encounter with this card is brief, appearing as a momentary glimmer or flash of interconnectedness. There we go. Its potent energy stays with us. The cosmic egg is a remedy for the fragmentation of modern life. So it's very possible. Are you kidding me? It's very possible that, you both have soul fragmentation that needs to be healed. Trauma. Where was I? It's through the power of this card that we are reminded of the cosmic contract written at the beginning. Soul contract. We hold on to life and life holds on to us. The journey is complete, but it does not end. So I'm actually going to keep that card. All right, so underneath that card, we also have divine masculine energy. I just wanted to mention it. And actually under the hermit crab, we have divine feminine energy. So look at this. Underneath the bottom of the decks, divine masculine energy, divine feminine energy, the tiger and the cheetah. I'm going to keep that there. So I feel like it was also meant to trigger a balance of divine feminine, divine masculine energy. So we do have, I think I saw what one of the cards is. The gazelle. Yes. So one of the things it was meant to trigger, heightened awareness emotional vulnerability, perhaps psychic abilities. When out of balance, it does talk about insomnia and a racing mind, overthinking. So, how can I put this into words? So one of the things it was meant to trigger was to teach you both how to live in the present moment, to not live in the past or in the wounds of the past or past trauma, and to not overthink about the future and to worry about the future. Because when you worry about the future, it destroys the present moment. So I feel like this connection was meant to trigger you both to appreciate the present moment. Fire energy, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. It also talks about nourishing your spirit. So this, and how do we nourish our spirit? We heal our shadows and let our light out. And we have the buffalo. Earth energy, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. It also gives me Hierophant energy. So it was meant to trigger spiritual ascension, things that you're meant to heal that are on your soul contract. The buffalo's come out a few times. Grounded yet heavenly, practical yet spiritual. So it's very similar to the giraffe, where there needs to be a balance of like intuition and logic. It was meant to ground you both spiritually. When out of balance, restless and lacks gratitude. When in balance, trusting. So I feel like this connection was meant to help you both trust in spirituality. And this connection was meant to put challenges, hardships, and bumps in the road. You were meant to have these obstacles because it leads to spiritual ascension. Challenge, hardship, or a bump in the road is an opportunity for upliftment. So spiritual upliftment. The buffalo does not fear death, illness, or misfortune. Its gentle eyes look to the road ahead, trusting every turn. May we all experience this elusive yet life-changing bliss from time to time. And may we allow this card to remind us that life is a precious gift. All right, I should probably make sure this is straight. No, it's not straight. I'll fix it after. Otherwise, it'll be crooked for half the reading. All right, we're getting there, my friends. We're getting there. Okay, so I think I'm going to do tarot next. So what shadows was this connection meant to trigger? Queen of Cups, first card. It reminds me of the hen because we talked about people pleasing. And again, these cards aren't meant to be specific to either of you. It's the energies within this connection. The Tower, the Panther. Yes, synchronicities. And I'm just going to pull a few cards for this one. Knight of Wands. Oh my gosh. To me, that's that, like, it speaks to that unhealthy attachment, possibly runner energy, inconsistency, hot and cold, which leads to cognitive dissonance and unbalanced energy. Thank you, you little yappy dog. Let's see. And the crow. We've got the Three of Cups. Yes, this is perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect. So, what was it meant to trigger? It was meant to trigger past wounds that needed to be healed. Probably a lot from childhood or past connections. This is perfect because sometimes when I talk about the Three of Cups and I talk about energetic exchange, I explain this. I talk about a big pot and I talk about each of you having a cup. And now I remember what deck it's from. The next time that example comes in as a download, I can grab this deck. Because that's exactly what I'm talking about. In order for there to be energetic balance, and the Three of Cups, yes, the Three of Cups talks about many things. But specifically in this reading, it's about energetic balance between two people. It's about mutual give and take and an emotional balance. And so imagine this is energy. And in order to have that energy flow, you need to both equally give to that pot. So if you, let's say even, it's like, we can even use the example of, it's a magic potion. And it will only work with the ingredients you have and the ingredients this person has. So if you are the only one pouring your ingredients into this pot and they aren't pouring theirs into the pot, that magic potion won't happen. That energetic flow can't happen because only your cup is going in there. In order for that magical potion, whatever, to happen, or there to be energetic flow, both cups have to go in equally. All the ingredients need to go in. And that could be stemming from a past wound. Like to the person who gives more, they could have felt unseen by their parents. They could have been neglected by their parents. So they thought if they just showed more love and people pleased and overgave, they would see that love return to them, stemming from a past wound. The other person who doesn't give enough, maybe they came from a similar background where they were emotionally neglected and they never learned how to give love and they just learned to protect themselves. Anyway, I laugh how much I can talk in these readings. Oh my goodness. So what shadows were being triggered within this connection? What shadows were being triggered within this connection? Yes! Yes! I love when the Empress comes out. So good. We do have the Chariot on the bottom, and that's about coming into alignment. Let me look at the Chariot for 1 minute. Let me see the Chariot in this deck. Where are you, little Chariot? Okay, so the Chariot talks about indecision and not being able to trust the intuition. Also, for the Chariot to move forward, it has to have both horses pulling it in alignment. So I do feel like there was something about, possibly something was out of alignment here. But for what it's triggering control, which I think we talked about somewhere in here, and the need to release control. Yeah, there was control on power struggle with the hen and something else, and the Devil card. It's also triggering intuition or blocked intuition, which we saw in one of these cards. I think it was the rabbit. And, you know, I'm hearing the serenity prayer. For those of you who are, you know, recovering addicts like myself, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can. Wait, I should know this. I haven't been to an AA meeting in a long time. Still sober. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And, you know, maybe for some of you, the lesson was you thought you could change the situation by holding on or by giving more love. Maybe what was triggered within your person was accepting the things they can change that are in their control. Anyway, so for triggers, we have, or what this was meant to trigger, what shadows it was meant to trigger: confidence, trusting your inner strength, trusting your inner knowing, because we have the strength card. The strength card also talks about ego, and that's how I started this reading, was talking about ego. And what happens is, like, we have a lion here, and this is meant to be the divine feminine. And I always say with the strength card, you could have triggered this person's shadows and they could have reacted like that lion. And we have the Empress, which speaks for itself. It was meant to trigger divine feminine energy. It was meant to trigger that in both of you. Maybe even awaken you on your divine feminine journey, having the strength and the courage to be that divine feminine. And divine feminines trust their intuition. Someone in my comment section said it yesterday. Divine feminines, because I was talking about how divine feminines, they don't lose patience. Divine feminines are very healed. Divine feminines, very patient. So you don't see divine feminines speaking in a way like, if they don't come in 2 months, I'm done. You see divine feminines speaking in a way, I trust in what's meant for me will not pass me by. I believe this person can change. There's compassion there. There's patience, trusting your intuition. And somebody else said, divine feminines also have to learn healthy boundaries. They have very strong boundaries, divine feminines. So I do feel like it was meant to trigger the boundary thing, having the strength and the confidence, because the hen talked about this type of energy, boundaries and confidence and reclaiming power. Self-love could also be here with the Empress, like more confidence, self-love. Let's just look at what this deck says for the Empress. So it was meant to trigger indecisiveness, possibly a blockage of ideas. It talks about being in a sense of limbo, triggering deeper introspection, regaining a sense of peace and purpose, self-expression, trusting your intuition, raising your vibrational field. Beautiful. So we have Taurus, Libra, Leo, Earth, and Fire. Let's get 2 more cards. What was this connection meant to trigger? I feel like this connection awakened you. with the Empress and the cosmic egg. So 9 of Pentacles. I love this. Love it. So the 9 of Pentacles, definitely this connection triggered insecurity. Maybe fear of giving up independence. I'm looking at that guy. I'm looking at that person right over there. I'm looking at that bunny who was like, oh no, I'm losing my independence. I better run. But the 9 of Pentacles is about self-sufficiency. It's about self-empowerment. It's about confidence, working on yourself, and being there for yourself, being the highest version of yourself. 9 of Pentacles, where you don't need anything from outside of you. All you need is within you. And then once you hit that state, that's when you get to the 10 of Pentacles. So I love that that's on the bottom. Love it. So we have the Queen of Pentacles. That's interesting. For some of you, staying in a relationship for the wrong reasons. I don't know if that's you or them or both. I can give examples. So staying in a situation where you're not being nurtured, where you're in the relationship for the wrong reasons. Example, you believe that someone has the potential to change, but staying in that pattern, if that makes sense. Like staying in a bad situation because you believe, maybe this person told you, I will change, just give me another chance. But when there's that pattern repeating, that devil energy, the giraffe, when the pattern is repeating, that change isn't going to happen. Change happens when you step out of the cycle, when you step out of the pattern. So one of the things that could have triggered was like staying in a connection that wasn't nurturing, that wasn't grounding, because of seeing someone's potential. And what I mean by that is, if you are a divine feminine, you have like a soul remembrance of this person's highest, or their like 5D self. You have a remembrance of their soul when it's in its highest vibration and form. You're not consciously aware of this, but that's where that feeling of, it's like your soul remembers who they are. But at some point, the giraffe, you need to look at who they are in the 3D and kind of step back, because they're not their highest self or their highest potential in the 3D. We have to trust what the 3D is showing us and give them time to elevate into the 5D. The other example I was going to use is someone staying in a connection not for love. So, and I'm not talking about you and this person. I'm talking about like if you were with someone where you were staying in the connection, you had a connection with your soul person, but you had someone else and you were staying in that connection because you were afraid of upsetting your family, you were afraid of breaking a family, you were afraid of what people would think, or it could have been your person that was connected to someone else. And the Queen of Pentacles is also about tending to our inner garden. And the Hermit crab talks about tending to our inner landscape. So it did trigger the both of you to need to tend to your inner landscape. We also have Moonchild here. So that's an interesting one to come out. I'll have to look at that. That's an extra card. Shout out to anybody who likes Never Ending Story. That was what Bastian named... Was she a princess? When she's like, say my name. Okay, I'll do it. I'll say it. Moonchild. Sorry. I'm not sorry. Clearly, I love that movie. Where are you, Moonchild? So this is an interesting one. So it was meant to help you connect with the moon, connect with your intuition. It was meant to trigger connection within both of you. Your ability to manifest or learn how to manifest. Boundaries. It says boundaries. Are there any energies that need to be released? So one thing it triggered within both of you is anything unnecessary needed to be released. That goes for other energies. That goes for energies within you. It's also on page 123, so it feels like this connection was meant to bring you into alignment. And the moon, connecting with the moon has to do with shadows. So I feel like that's symbolic there. All right, so I feel like this has already been a very long reading. Let me see how long it's been. It's only been 1 hour and 6 minutes. Sarcasm. So I'm just gonna this is where it may get tricky. Sacred woundings. This can be a triggering one. So deep breath. We're only gonna get a few. And like I said, this book is available on Amazon. Sacred Shadows by the Reckoning Co. And everything in this book is in these cards. Like all the wounds that are in these cards are in this book. So you can either go to Etsy and get the Sacred Wounding deck by Reckoning Co., or you could just pick up the book. We're just gonna get a few, but this is a way to understand where these wounds come from. All right. Are you kidding me? Cognitive dissonance? Are you kidding me? Thank you. The amount of times I said cognitive dissonance. All right. So we're starting there. Cognitive dissonance. I just opened right up. Ugh, Spirit, you are magical. Thank you so much. I just can't get over the synchronicities. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Albert Einstein. I have an Albert Einstein quote on my shoulder. Tattoo, I mean. All right, this is long, so strap in. Cognitive dissonance is the tension between what you believe and what you experience. The moment when reality no longer aligns with the stories you've been telling yourself. It is the discomfort of realizing that something you once held as truth may not be true at all. And so the mind resists. It clings to old narratives, justifies contradictions, and avoids the deeper reckoning. Because to admit the truth, to acknowledge the misalignment, means facing the unknown, letting go of certainty, and stepping into a space where you no longer have all the answers, and that is terrifying. And that can go for both of you. You know, I could see it in the example of what I was saying about seeing someone's potential versus how they're showing up in the 3D. I can see it as, you know, someone who believes they don't have any wounding, someone who believes they don't show up in unhealthy ways. But that's actually not the truth or the reality, if that makes sense. Growth is not about staying comfortable. It is about evolving beyond illusions that no longer serve you. The discomfort of cognitive dissonance is not a punishment. It is an invitation to question, to expand, to rewrite what no longer fits. The mind will try and hold on, to rationalize, to resist, but the soul knows when something is no longer in alignment. And this is reminding me of the Chariot. You do not have to fear new truth. You do not have to fear change. When you allow yourself to sit with the discomfort, when you open yourself to seeing things as they are rather than how you wish them to be, you are not losing yourself. You are finally finding clarity. And I just have to stress that just because you finally see the truth of a situation and maybe there is a withdrawal that is necessary, the hermit crab, doesn't mean that that change can't happen. But that change can't happen while you're still stuck in a cycle, if that makes sense. And the most empowering thing you can do is to withdraw, and just kind of in the energy of this reading. So, what is a belief I hold that contradicts my actions or choices? When have I justified something I knew deep down wasn't working? How do I react when I receive information that challenges my perspective? And that's kind of what I was getting at the beginning of this reading when I was talking about our ego reacts. And some people get very defensive and they deflect and they deny. Do I feel resistance when changing my mind? What fears arise? Interesting. In what areas of my life do I feel stuck between two conflicting truths? How have my past beliefs evolved over time and what caused those shifts? Am I holding on to certain ideas out of fear, comfort, or societal expectations? What emotions surface when I realize I may have been wrong about something important? How can I create space to hold opposing truths without shame or avoidance? If I gave myself full permission to change my mind, what would I let go of? So, cognitive dissonance, a deep internal conflict that arises when beliefs, values, or actions contradict each other, leading to mental and emotional distress. This wound manifests as discomfort, self-doubt, and an inability to reconcile opposing truths, creating a cycle of rationalization, avoidance, or justification. Can I just mention something really quick? There is something that people do. I recently heard it. It's called jade. And I believe it's when you try and... I know what it is. It's when you try and speak your truth to someone and they justify, argue... What is it? Justify, argue, defend. I could forget what the E stands for. Essentially leaving you doubting your truth or doubting your experience. Anyway, there may be a struggle between personal integrity and external expectations, a disconnection between what is known and what is chosen, or a fear of confronting truths. This can result in feelings of guilt, anxiety, or defensiveness when challenged. Over time, cognitive dissonance can lead to exhaustion as the mind constantly tries to bridge the gap between belief and reality. Some may attempt to resolve the conflict by clinging to familiar narratives, while others may oscillate between perspectives, never fully settling in an authentic truth. Physically, this wound can manifest as headaches, digestive distress, or chronic tension, particularly in the jaw or neck from suppressed frustration. Watch for patterns of denial, justifying, or avoiding information that challenges existing beliefs. All right. We're just going to get a few more. I'll hold your hand while we do it. I want to hold your hand. Next one, control wound. Spirit, you are on fire today. Just fire. Seriously. Spirit is on fire. Not really. Control wound. How many times did that come out? A lot. The answer is a lot. The moment when you stop trying to control everything is the moment life begins to flow. Control convinces you that safety lies in planning every step, predicting every outcome, and holding tight to everything and everyone around you. It tells you that the world is unpredictable, and so the only way to protect yourself is to shape every circumstance to your will. But control is an illusion, a false sense of security built on fear. It creates a life of constant tension where peace is elusive and trust is something you must constantly strive for, yet never fully embrace. The truth is, trying to control the uncontrollable only keeps you trapped in a cycle of exhaustion, anxiety, and disconnection. That is so true. Healing the control wound is about surrendering to the flow of life, trusting that not everything needs to be in your grasp for you to be safe. It's about recognizing that true strength comes from not holding on, but from letting go. Letting go of expectations, of rigid outcomes, of the need to manipulate every situation. When you release the need to control, you allow life to unfold in ways that are far more expansive than you could have ever planned. And in that space, you rediscover peace, trust, and the freedom to experience life as it is, without needing to dictate every detail. What situations make you feel the most out of control, and how do you typically respond? Do you trust others to handle things, or do you feel the need to oversee everything yourself? I feel so attacked right now. What is your earliest memory of feeling powerless, and how has it shaped your need for control? How do you react when plans change unexpectedly? Again, stop attacking me, book. Do you associate surrender with weakness or failure? Why? What areas in life feel rigid, and how might they be limiting you? Have you ever lost something important trying too hard to control it? What would it feel like to trust that you are safe even when things don't go as planned? How do you differentiate between healthy boundaries and control? What is one small way that I can practice letting go? No, what is one small way you can practice letting go of control in your life? So the control wound. The control wound. A deeply rooted fear of uncertainty, chaos, or powerlessness leading to an overwhelming need to control circumstances, people, or outcomes. This wound manifests as hypervigilance, perfectionism, and an inability to trust the natural flow of life. There may be a deep-seated belief that if control is lost, everything will fall apart, resulting in excessive planning, difficulty delegating, or micromanaging others. Some may struggle with surrender, feeling uneasy when they are not in charge. Others may rely on rigid structures or rules to create a false sense of stability. Emotionally, this wound can lead to anxiety, frustration, and burnout, as reality rarely conforms to the expectations set. Physically, it may manifest as jaw tension, digestive distress, or chronic headaches due to suppressed emotions and unrelenting stress. Over time, the need for control can push others away, limit spontaneity, and create a life that feels safe but devoid of true freedom. Watch for patterns of overthinking, difficulty trusting others, or struggling to adapt when plans change. I am not good when plans change unless plans are canceled, you know? Like sometimes when I used to have plans with someone, I've been hermiting, and I'd get that like, oh, I'm not feeling well, I can't do that tonight. Secretly, I'd be like, yes, I get to stay home and be a hermit. All right, let's get two more. Broken trust. Oh dear. Cynicism wounds. How interesting. And broken trust. And once someone breaks your trust, you do become quite cynical, right? So, broken trust. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. Ernest Hemingway. Broken trust is a wound that lingers long after the betrayal, shaping how we see others, how we protect ourselves, and how we navigate the world. It teaches the mind to question everything, to seek proof before believing, to hesitate before opening up. But trust is not something you analyze into certainty. It is something you choose. Can I just say, this could also have to do with, as I was reading that, I was hearing Judy from the elf from the Santa Claus, where she says, what does she say? Seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. Whatever she says, I don't know. But you could feel like spirit or God or the divine or the universe. I don't know why this is coming through, but I have to say it. You could feel betrayed by spirit, especially if you like see this as your counterpart, but then you ended up in separation. And it's, the reason I'm bringing this up is because somebody did say something recently to me about this, about how they feel like they've been being lied to by God, by me, by the universe, questioning everything. So if you feel like you've trusted in something spiritual that didn't manifest or didn't work out, or you're still in separation, you could be very cynical about believing in spirituality. So the broken trust, I almost feel like all of this energy is mirrored. Like you and your person experience all of this in different ways. But like your broken trust could have to do with spirit. Okay. Anyway. The truth is, trust is always a risk. It does not come with guarantees, and it will never be without tests. I was just going to say, that sounds to me like a spiritual test. A test of faith. Living in fear of broken trust only ensures that you'll never experience connection. Fully experience connection. Healing does not mean trusting blindly. It means trusting wisely. It means listening to your intuition, discerning who has earned your vulnerability, and remembering that trust begins not with others, but within yourself. The past may have given you reasons to doubt, but only you can decide if those doubts will keep you from ever stepping forward again. So I'm going to read you the reflection things. These are, ask yourself these things and meditate. When was the first time I felt betrayed, and how has it shaped my ability to trust? Do I trust people easily, or do I require them to earn it, and why? How do I react when someone shares something deeply personal with me? Have I ever withheld my true thoughts or feelings because I feared betrayal? Do I test people's loyalty, and if so, what am I hoping to prove? What would my relationships look like if I fully trusted those close to me? In what ways have I punished myself for trusting the wrong people? How does my fear of betrayal influence my ability to be vulnerable? What does trust mean to me, and what conditions do I place on it? How can I rebuild trust both in myself and in others? So, broken trust. A deep and persistent struggle with vulnerability and openness due to severe betrayals or violations of trust. This wound manifests as hypervigilance in relationships, a constant need to test others' loyalty, and the inability to rely on support. There may be a heightened sense of paranoia, compulsive verification of facts, or difficulty delegating responsibilities due to fear of being let down, very connected to that control one. Physical symptoms include chest constriction, shallow breathing, or body tension when sharing personal information. This wound often leads to secret keeping, information hoarding, and the creation of elaborate self-protection systems that keep others at a distance. While this may result in personal success, it can also lead to isolation, difficulty with teamwork, and an inability to form or maintain truly intimate relationships. Watch for patterns of extreme self-reliance. Remember the Nine of Pentacles came out and I said fear of giving up independence. Avoidance of emotional dependence or resisting to trusting even those who have proven themselves loyal. And then cynicism wound. There's a lot of C's there. The letter C could be symbolic. Today's reading was brought to you by the letter C. I think I'm funny. Cynicism is not wisdom. Cynicism masquerades as wisdom, but cynicism is a self-imposed blindness. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. Cynicism often appears as protection, an armor against being hurt, deceived, or let down. So emotional armor. But in truth, it is a self-imposed blindness. It convinces you that the world is full of deceit, that trust is a weakness, and that hope is for the naive. It hides behind the guise of wisdom, convincing you that by seeing the flaws in everything, you are somehow more grounded or realistic. Yet this wisdom keeps you stuck, blind to the possibility of joy, connection, and the beauty of human experience. In shielding yourself from the pain of disappointment, you shut out the potential for growth, love, and meaningful connection. Healing cynicism requires courage, strength. The courage to open your eyes to the world as it is without the veil of skepticism. It's about releasing the belief that you must protect yourself from vulnerability by cutting yourself off from the good. True wisdom is not seeing everything through a lens of distrust, but in recognizing that while pain exists, so does love, kindness, and change. When you allow yourself to believe in the beauty of life again, you no longer have to live in a self-imposed darkness. You can step into the light of possibility, embracing the fullness of the human experience without fear of being disappointed. Who is eating right now? One of you is having a snack. I know it. Well, I did tell you to get a snack, but like, what are you eating? I want to know. So reflection questions. When did I start doubting the sincerity of others? What caused that shift? Do I believe my cynicism protects me from disappointment? Why or why not? How do I react to people who are deeply hopeful or idealistic? Well, I can tell you how people react to me. I trigger the shit out of people because I do have a lot of hope. People used to call me Pollyanna, and I trigger the crap out of people. What dreams or beliefs have I given up on, and do I still long for them? Have I ever mistaken cynicism for wisdom? What's the difference? What would it take for me to trust in something again? Do I use sarcasm, humor, or intellectualizing to avoid emotional depth? I used to use sarcasm. How has my cynicism affected my ability to connect with others? If I weren't afraid of disappointment, what would I allow myself to believe in? What is one small step I can take to embrace curiosity instead of skepticism? Cynicism wound. A deeply ingrained mistrust of people, life, and hope itself. I almost want to say spirituality too, because I feel like there are people out there that are very, have a lot of cynicism. Is that the right term? Is that how you use that word? Towards spirituality and believing in this stuff. And like the stuff I've experienced, crazy pants. Anyway. Often developed as a defense mechanism against past disappointments, betrayals, or disillusionment. This wound manifests as skepticism towards goodness, resistance to optimism, and a reflex to assume ulterior motives behind kindness or generosity. That's interesting. In one of these cards, it mentions suspicion. So someone who grew up, I just have to say this, someone who grew up with a manipulative parent or even has manipulative tendencies themselves may question kindness or generosity, kind of like this is saying. Ulterior motives behind kindness and generosity. There may be a belief that hope is naive, that trust leads to pain, and that expecting the worst is the only way to avoid being hurt. Cynicism often disguises itself as wisdom or realism, but beneath it lies grief, unprocessed losses, broken ideals, and a heart that was once wanted to believe in something greater. You know what? I used to be the most I don't know the word. I used to be full of cynicism. And like, I would make comments about believing in, other life forms and driving by churches or seeing spiritual people and like making negative comments. And it's because, and I'd be like, I don't believe in any of that. And it's because deep down, I wanted something to believe in, right? And now I believe in it so much it's crazy pants. A heart that once wanted to believe in something greater. That one stands out to me. Emotionally, this wound can lead to isolation, emotional detachment, or a sense of superiority over those who still believe. Believe is in quotations. Physically, it may manifest as chronic tension of the jaw, tightness in the chest, or fatigue from carrying an invisible weight of distrust. Over time, cynicism can create a self-fulfilling cycle, reinforcing the very disappointments it was meant to prevent. Watch for patterns of dismissing genuine kindness, downplaying hope, or intellectualizing emotions to avoid vulnerability. All right, I'm going to leave you alone now, my friends. I feel like I've talked to you long enough. Anyway, if you watched this whole thing, that's impressive. If you had a snack, tell me what it was. I'm a Taurus. I love to talk about food. And as always, my friends, I am sending you lots of love and light, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.